I am a fool. That is one thing for certain. Hey, my name is Brian Curtis, and I'm the founder of Decentralized Systems. And today I have Aisha Westmoreland. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Just like the general,
Just
General
like
Westmoreland.
Aisha Westmoreland. Okay. So I always start with this question. How did you get to what you're doing now? And I just read, we were just discussing before we started this recording that you're into paranormal research. So I would love to hear how you got there and what moved you into that field.
Yes, honestly, I've always been an inquisitive person to learn things here and there and just different things. But one thing I've always been consistent with is I've always loved talking. And so I just became a public speaker and a communications coach just so I can teach people the positive and proactive ways of communication because conversation is so important. Every day we
Right.
interact with many people, many different circumstances, and you don't really understand and grasp the full concept of what your words can do. Like they say, people only have 10,000 conversations a day or 1,000 words a day, but only 700 of those words actually mean something to the other person.
That makes sense.
So I teach people that to make sure everything you say, and I
Right.
got into paranormal because I just love, I have a fascination with spirits and the afterlife. And I've just seen so much of it, paranormal activity growing up that it's just it's only natural for me to want to, educate myself, see what else is out there, and to show others too. Because even though there are a lot of skeptics out there, if you put it in front of them, they're gonna watch it. It's like, I don't believe in it, but I'll watch it.
Right. I have quite a few experiences in my life that were definitely paranormal in nature. And I've had a lot of family members that had their own experiences. I think I have one cousin who used to say that he'd see shadow people in the airports all the time, where, they were just shadows of people that were all around him all the time. And he'd see them in every airport. And I don't know if they ever talked to him, but I never heard that story. But my brother has had all kinds of paranormal experiences. I don't think I know anybody in my close personal sphere that has actually opened up and trusted me with their stories that hasn't had some kind of paranormal experience, right? I mean, there's more to this to heaven and earth than has ever been dreamt in our philosophies. That's one of my favorite quotes, from William Shakespeare, because it's so true, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
there's so little that we really know.
It's
So
so big. It's like, how can there not be other things out?
exactly.
The world is so advanced, far beyond our knowledge.
So, do you mostly coach people how do public speaking, or where do you primarily uh, target your efforts?
No, I honestly go everywhere. I go into work with their employees on boosting employee morale and increasing customer service experience, ways in how to talk to the customers. If people are having conflict in workplace, because I know that's a really there's a lot of workplace drama of
Yeah.
establishments. And so I go in and try and be mediator and try to explain to them and be the voice of reason. Okay, this is what this person is, and try and get them to come to understandings.
Yeah, usually in my experiences, it's all just misunderstandings. Everybody has usually pretty good intent, and people have a hard time expressing themselves, depending on what kind of environment they grew up in. And so uh, there's a lot of
Exactly.
room for growth there, and teaching people how to become more open kind of helps that process. A lot of my other podcasts have been centered on being vulnerable. So do you work with that concept much in your coaching skills?
Well, I think it's different. I mean, yes, you have to have a certain sense of vulnerability with anything when opening up. Because when you coming outside comfort zone, and that's making you vulnerable, or what you may perceive as vulnerable.
Sure.
So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I mean, you're always, in order to open up and become vulnerable, you're always open to some kind of pain, right? And there's always this fear of rejection. You really open up to uh, share more and more of yourselves, right? That's a common problem that people face, and that's the reason why they aren't maybe as open as they could be. Just that fear, that inherent fear of rejection that everybody has at some level.
Yes. And what I also try and tell people too is, everybody is not coming from the same walk of life as you. There are different cultures, there are different religions of circumstances. So when you talk to somebody, yourself how you were raised and just put yourself in a neutral zone. Like don't know anything about anything. And that way there you can easily gauge and open up and see where the other person is coming from. And don't be afraid to ask questions. If you don't understand, don't take it as something else. Mean that. What did you mean by that? You know?
Yeah, acceptance is a big part of any kind of relationship, right? We all have to accept each other and what we went through, because all of us are on these different journeys. And you can't, if you get to a place where you're holding on to too much guilt or the past, then you're going to hold on to somebody else's guilt and past. You're always viewing the world the way you're viewing yourself. So it's, it is definitely a process. I will agree with that.
And I always say it too in my speaking engagements. I call it the 3 A: be accepting, you have to be accountable, and you have to be acknowledgeable. You have to acknowledge what's going on, you have to be accountable of your actions, and just be open.
Yeah. So you have to tell me a good paranormal story. Do you do paranormal research?
I do. Um, I honestly haven't went anywhere lately in a while. I've been meaning to get out there, but I just haven't gotten the time to. But last September I was actually at the and that's where they filmed Gone with the Wind. That was the house they filmed
Oh,
at. And we had a real nice paranormal experience. We had this paranormal investigator. I worked with him, Robert Honeywell, or Honeycutt, I'm sorry, Robert Honeycutt. And he just did this great broadcast and went around and showed everyone, all the local paranormal enthusiasts, what really goes on while you're in a paranormal. And it was really cool.
hmm, interesting. So is that house being lived in right now, or is it empty?
No, it's empty. It's just for shows and tours.
Okay, interesting.
Yes, so anybody can go to the Stately Oaks house and see. It's a great house.
Yeah, I remember the house. It's got that giant staircase, right? That kind of goes up and then splits on the
Yes,
top. And they've never remodeled it since the movie, or does it look just the same as it did when they filmed the movie? I think that was 1929, right? When
I
Gone.
believe I believe they've had to do some renovations just because, the aging and stuff. But I
Sure.
think, with the architecture and everything, it's still pretty.
You just put something else on my bucket list. I think I need to go see that. But when I was younger,
Yes, absolutely.
when I was younger, my mom loved that movie and she'd watch it. I've probably seen Gone with the Wind, I don't know, maybe three, 4 or 5 times. And I know it was made the same year as The Wizard of Oz. That's the only reason I knew that it was 1929 because Gone with the Wind and Wizard of Oz came out that same year. Gone with the Wind, won the Academy Award that year, and Wizard of Oz did. But two great movies all in the same year there in the end of the 20s. But so is
One thing I will say though is it did look smaller.
oh, it did.
Like I was expecting to go in and be grand, and it actually was pretty small compared to my expectations. So that was funny to see.
Yeah. So what other places have you been? Have you done studies at? I'd be curious to see where else you had. There's a lot of very famous haunted places in the U.S. Have you been to any of the other common ones? I think there's one in California. They're all over.
No, I haven't been able to get out any over there. I just, go local. Island. I've done some too, like with me and my cousin. Um, and I just basically anywhere that I feel has a calling, if you will, if it calls to me, then I go and see. So abandoned house or an abandoned farm, but something I want to go over there.
Yeah, I've recently watched It's a Wonderful Life. That's it. That's a movie that always comes
I
out this
love that.
season. And that old house, at the beginning there where George Bailey and Mary throw rocks at it, and then they end up living in that house when they grow older. I was always curious to know where that was filmed at because that old house that they moved into always interested me from that movie. Do you know where that's
Yeah, I don't
from?
know.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't. That would be an
But
interesting one as well.
yeah, I've always been intrigued by old houses though, because there's if they have a long history, then there has to be something that's still there, right? The essence of somebody, or uh, just even if it's just a shadow of what used to be there. There's so much history in Europe too. I would guess that Europe has got a far older culture as far as haunted houses and haunted places go.
Everywhere, yes. I always say there's home places everywhere because people die everywhere.
Yeah,
There's going to
maybe
be
you,
something of someone of a residual energy.
you can put me on your list of people to let me know when you visit your next one. I'd love to go tour another haunted house. I mean, the one in
Yes,
Disneyland really doesn't do
absolutely.
justice to real haunted houses, right?
Oh, no, no.
So
It's a
before
good
we
try,
end,
though.
what's that? It's a good try.
It's a good try. Yes.
Yeah, it is my earliest memory of a haunted house. I think I was there when I was 10, and so I remember how that haunted house was when I was 10, and it's different now. It feels and looks different because I took my older kids when they were older. But it's funny how things change. I was talking to somebody else recently, and it's funny how the only things that never changes is that nothing ever stays the same. So everything's getting older,
True
and
words never been said.
yeah. So let me know, are there any specific challenges? Your main business then is probably doing enterprise coaching or just business coaching in general to teams to alleviate conflicts. Is there
Yes, and
let's
I'm
say,
also a freelance journalist.
okay. Have you seen
Yeah.
like a rate of change in the last 12 months as far as conflicts on the rise in business, or is it lowering? I know we had a lot of problems in COVID, and COVID caused a lot of difficulties because more people were working remotely. But I'd be curious to get your take on as far as what you view as maybe rising conflicts or lowering conflicts in business right now.
I don't see it so much with employees. I see it with employee expectations, period. I I feel the work ethic has drastically down. Um, as far as, how the employees interact within the workplace and their communication, I really don't see a change in that. the only conflict I see is them wanting to work from home rather than be in the office. That's the
Right.
biggest conflict I hear, you know. But I feel like for the most part, you're always going to have those certain industries and establishments that can bring about drama and conflict, but it's very minimal, I would say. I believe everyone is more cautious and open at these point in days.
That's good to hear. I mean, it seems like as a whole, uh, I live on the West Coast, and the crime rates in Seattle and Portland and, on the West Coast of California seem to be going up a little bit. And usually that is indicative of, the fear rate rises, and, there's more people just feeling this lack, where they feel like they need to start stealing or, taking from other people. So,
I know,
um,
yeah, there's been a lot more scamming on the rise.
oh yeah. I mean, I just started a business, and if I told you how many times I've been somebody's attempted to scam me in the last 12 months, I don't know. I have to
Oh,
start
it's
taking toll.
disgusting. Yes. I get at least 40 calls a day, them trying to sell me Medicare.
Oh God. Oh yeah, and somehow I got, put on a Medicare list. I'm not even
Yes.
I'm not even 60 years old yet. And
Yes.
somehow I'm getting called for Medicare benefits, almost daily. And I can't get off of the list. I don't know how to get off of
Me too. I've been trying for at least 2 months now, and I don't know what to do.
it. Yeah. So give me one good story, maybe a success story of a client that you had where you felt really good walking away, or maybe even a paranormal experience. Yeah, that maybe you saw when you were a kid or when you were older. Anything that you'd like to share. I would love to hear a story.
Okay, well, I think I have a good paranormal story for you.
Okay.
And honestly, I feel like it's a story that made me really want to investigate the paranormal.
Awesome.
So this is what started it all. Is I was about, I would say, 8 years old. I just woke up out of my sleep, just, out of nowhere. And I looked in my doorway and I saw my mother standing in my doorway. So I was like, Mommy, I can't sleep. Can I have a hug? Can you put me back to sleep? And when I went to go open up my arms, she vanished. And so I told her that morning, I said, You don't remember, I woke up and you were in my doorway. And she goes, That wasn't me. I was asleep the whole night. And so
Wow.
I was like, No, like it was you. It had your glasses on, it had your pajamas on. It looked exactly how, like, when you went to bed, it was you. She goes, No, I was asleep all night. And so that really was my first paranormal experience that started
Wow.
it off.
Yeah, that's a pretty vivid one, especially if you can
Yeah,
confirm the
I
fact that
can.
you were awake and you know that you weren't sleeping, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a lot of sleeping dreams that were so vivid that it felt like it really happened, but then thinking, I still woke up. I had the feeling of waking up. But I mean, if you remember getting up and having that
Yeah, I
experience,
remember like lifting up off the bed and everything, like getting up, leaning forward, all of that.
wow, that's an interesting story.
Yeah.
I know my dad has had experiences of my mother passed away about 5 years ago, and he's had experiences of seeing her and even hearing her in the room, especially when he's doing things that he knows that she wouldn't want him to do.
Those are the
So,
good ones.
right. So
Yes.
we know mom's around, shaking her finger at us at times, we know she's there somewhere. So.
Yeah.
But it's
Love
been a
that.
pleasure, Iesha. If there's anything else you'd like to share, I'll leave it to you, and then we'll close up.
Yes, I am available to anyone, nationwide. My services are available anywhere. I'm a public speaker, a personal and professional business coach, and communications coach, a freelance journalist. And please look at my YouTube channel, Uniquely Iesha, and also my website, uniquelyiesha.com. And thank you for having me.
Awesome. It was great meeting you. Love you.
Yes, it was a pleasure. Love to be on again. Get me anytime.
All